Austro-Hungarian, okay.
Αν χρησιμοποιήσετε μεταφραστικό να προσέχετε, μην κατεβάσετε τα ακουστικά στο ύψος του μικροφόνου και θα κάνει...
Okay.
Θα απαντήσει μόνο αν τη ρωτήσουν ρουμάνικα, θα απαντήσει ρουμάνικα. Και θα το πει στην αρχή μόνο της.
Yes.
It's not. Yeah?
No, it's not.
Λοιπόν, τι κάνεις?
Πού είσαι και
Καλά είσαι?
Εδώ είσαι εδώ.
Εδώ είμαι, moderator, ναι.
Είδα και έχεις κάτι καυγάδες έξω.
Τι καυγάδες?
Λέει τι είσαι εσείς, λέω δεν μπορείτε. Λέει θα ελεγχθείτε. Γιατί είπα εγώ δεν έλεγχο. Μου κύριε κιόλας, τώρα θα σε ελέγξω, λέει ο security. Τι σου είπα εγώ δεν έλεγχο. Άρχισε να
Θα βγάλει μαζί φωτογραφία.
Εντάξει.
Μας πούνε πού καθόμαστε.
Πού μας στέλνεις, Μαρία?
Εδώ.
Τι κάνετε?
Εσείς είστε συνηθισμένος από τέτοιου τύπου events. Αυτό το setup είναι πιο δύσκολο από το πολύ. Και με αυτό με αγχώνει. Εντάξει, θα τα βρούμε.
Yes, we have to.
Then I will have to, because I'm participating in a panel that we arranged many months ago
Of course.
on electronic government.
Send my regards. We also participate in that. So we speak from there or from here?
Sorry?
We speak from here or
I think from here.
because we have micro.
I think from here. Θα μας πει η κυρία
So
Σαράφοβου.
we speak from here or from the computer?
No, you just speak from
Here.
here, where you sit.
Δεν χρειάζεται να σκοτούμε.
Yeah, very
Από
beautiful.
εδώ μιλάμε.
I will be going around for a while in the introductory speech. So explain what happens and
Καθιστά, έτσι,
the
όχι.
video goes because it has
Ναι,
It has
αυτό δεν είναι το νόημα. Να είναι και μια
Are you
κουστάζα.
from which newspaper?
excuse me?
From which?
No, I'm from Antenna Television. It's a private TV station based in Athens.
Yeah, nice.
Είμαι εξωτερικός υπουργός. Είναι αρκετοί τώρα. Ειδικά μετά τον ανασχηματισμό γίνανε και περισσότεροι. Και ο Τζανακόπουλος και η Αξιόγλου, και ο Βασιλιάδης,
Yes, I know.
και ο Γιάκος.
Yeah, yes. Nice to meet you.
Ουσιαστικά όλοι οι πιο
Thank you.
νέα φουρνιά, ας πούμε, είμαστε εκτός του.
Another friend from European Parliament.
Good.
I don't remember very well, but
You
she
have,
said that we
you have friends everywhere.
ENG.
Many friends. Many friends, few enemies. That's good.
In Greece.
In Greece, only friends.
Oh, really? Yes. Thank you.
It's a very nice, it's a nice auditorium.
It's built by. It's very nice.
Huh? It's nice.
So to Euronews.
Will do your news together afterwards? With the news?
Yes, but I said to go together. I said to go. Because we did everything together.
Okay, Corina, you ready?
Είστε το πιο cool από όλους μου φαίνεται. Παλιά μου τεχνικό σκηνή.
Κάποιος που μας ψάχνει.
I'm Maria Sarafoulou. I'm a journalist for Antenna TV. Welcome to this open debate. Open, because you are here. You're going to engage in this discussion on this old continent. We all experienced a crisis that was related to the economy, then it grew into a societal crisis, and now it's an ideological one. It affects our ideological premises, and this is the most important factor. So tonight, this will be an open debate, as I said, an open dialogue, thanks to you, thanks to your contributions and your questions. our objective is to become just a little bit wiser about what the European Union is, how it can help us, and whether we need it and how and why we need it today. No microphone, I'm afraid. We lost the sound.
Με ακούτε τώρα?
So, I'm back. So it is a fact that in this juncture, with raging populism and so many challenges around without precedent for the European Union, it is more important than ever to strengthen cohesion in the European edifice as well as solidarity vis-à-vis migration crisis, etc., including, of course, the economic crisis. So thanks to your questions tonight, we will try to solve some queries that you might have about the functioning of the EU and eventually about its weakness, its inability to solve current problems. Many people believe that our daily lot does not improve. The debate will be organized in two parts. First, we will do the easy part. That is, we are going to discuss regional policy, EU funds, how they are used in Greece, which is considered as one of the most favored countries concerning EU funding. What are these EU funds? What is the NSRF, the National Strategic Reference Plan? Some are not familiar even with the abbreviation. How do we use these monies? And why the absorption rate is so low occasionally. And then we will debate the future of the EU. I would kindly ask you to focus on EU issues. Of course, Greece is going through another crisis after 7 years of crisis. But let us try to focus on how Europe can help in order to exit the crisis. And finally, how can we learn more tonight? So try to limit your questions to European issues, the role of the EU, forgetting for a few moments the current situation developing in Greece. So let's all try to do our best. Concerning the procedure, we will discuss regional policy, EU funds, and then in the second part, it's about the future of the European Union. We have here with us the Commissioner, Corina Crețu, in charge of regional policy. She knows Greece, she has visited Greece on multiple occasions. Believe me, she has helped a lot. She helped release EU funds, important EU funds, so that Greece does not lose these funds. She will visit quite a few regions in Greece. She will visit projects being implemented thanks to EU funds. She will inaugurate, together with the Prime Minister, the tunnels at Tempe, and then, of course, Mr. Alexis HARITSIS, an alternate Minister for Economy and Development. He is in charge of a very difficult portfolio. Mr. HARITSIS will discuss current challenges and how we manage EU funds, and also the chief spokesman of the European Commission, Mr. Schinas. We are so lucky to have a Greek at this position. Mr. Schinas, we feel more secure here. It is important and it makes us proud to see Greeks occupying these positions. So, once again, before I invite the Mayor, Mr. KAMINIS, to take the floor, let us now revisit the procedure. You can use your mobile phone or your tablet or your laptop
slido.com. Εκεί θα δείτε αυτήν ακριβώς την ιστοσελίδα.
This page, slido.com, slido.com, and then please enter
Όπως το βλέπετε εδώ. Είναι eudialogue.gr.
Then click on join and log in, because you will be invited to vote on a question that I will put to
Όσοι
you
είστε
a
εδώ,
bit
θα έχετε
later.
την ευκαιρία να μιλήσετε, οι
Of
περισσότεροι
course, you can take the
τουλάχιστον.
floor,
Γι' αυτό θα ήθελα
most
να
of you at
επισημάνω και
least.
κάτι άλλο, ότι δίνουμε
But there is one
απόψε
more
προτεραιότητα
thing.
στους πολίτες.
We will give
Και
priority
μετά στους
to
πολιτικούς που
citizens
βρίσκονται εδώ και
and
μας
then
τιμούν με την παρουσία τους.
to politicians
Πρώτα,
who
λοιπόν,
honor us with
να
their
δώσουμε
presence.
στους ανθρώπους που έχουν έρθει
I
εδώ
would
για να
like
ακούσουν
to
και να ενημερωθούν
We would
το
like to
λόγο
listen
και
to
μια
simple
σχετική προτεραιότητα στις ερωτήσεις
citizens,
σας.
the man in the
Σας
street
παρακαλώ
or the
πολύ
woman in the
να
street,
είναι σύντομες
and please
για
be
να πάρουμε
brief
όσο το δυνατόν
so that
περισσότερες
we can take
μπορούμε
as many
ερωτήσεις από
questions
το
as
κοινό.
possible
Χωρίς
from
τοποθέτηση,
the
αν γίνεται,
audience.
καταλαβαίνω ότι όλοι έχετε
Please
ένα
refrain
προηγούμενο
from
επιχείρημα
making
που πρέπει να
comments.
αναπτύξετε πριν
I'm sure you
φτάσετε
have
στην
your
τελική
arguments,
ερώτηση, αλλά θα
but
ήθελα να
please
είστε
do
όσο πιο
ask
σύντομοι
questions
γίνεται.
and as briefly as possible,
Θα
as I
περάσουμε
said.
στην ψηφοφορία στη συνέχεια. Θα
Later,
επαναλάβω και
we
την
will
διαδικασία για όσους δεν
vote.
την κατάλαβαν.
I will repeat the
Πάμε όμως
procedure for
πρώτα
those who have
να
not
καλέσουμε τον κύριο Γιώργο Καμίνη, τον Δήμαρχο
heard all
Αθηναίων,
the
να απευθύνει
details,
ένα
but let us
χαιρετισμό.
start with the mayor, Mr. KAMINIS, who will address this gathering. Thank you.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you very much.
Κύριε Επίτροπε,
Commissioner,
κύριε Υπουργέ,
Minister,
κύριε επικεφαλής εκπρόσωπε
Chief Spokesperson of the European Commission, ladies and gentlemen, MPs, dear friends.
θα ήθελα πρώτα να σας
First of all,
ευχαριστήσω
let me
θερμά
warmly
για
thank
την
you
πρόσκληση, αλλά και να
for
σας
the
καλωσορίσω
invitation, but also let me welcome you here to Technopolis of the municipality of Athens. This is one of the most popular venues for young people, but also for people visiting the city. It has been financed by EU funds, and it has been able to grow. There has been equipment that's been co-financed, but also facilities. This was under the integrated project Athens, and this was managed and implemented, but also designed by the municipality of Athens, and it received funding from structural funds and from the NSRF. Now, the fact that our municipality successfully managed EU funds and implemented significant projects that the municipality itself designed, social projects, growth-oriented projects, infrastructures. So this shows the possibilities that the city has, and also local government, but also the fact that we are oriented towards Europe, and we're also very extroverted in general. Now, for Athens, international alliances and active involvement in what's happening in the EU and in the world at large, well, these are our top priorities, and they act as catalysts in the efforts we make to deal with many challenges and problems. Our collaboration with the Commission does not only have to do with implementing projects under the NSRF. Now, with Commissioner Crețu, we have worked closely to promote the European urban agenda. So here we're talking about the role of EU cities. Their role has to be recognized further. They have to be more involved in the decision-making system in the EU. So we know that cities are very dynamic and they can help contribute to achieving EU objectives. In the discussion on the dialogue of Europe, and this began with the white paper published by the Commission, Greece needs to play an active role. We must fight against voices that are more introverted, and we know that there is fascism, so we need to go against fascism, because this will not allow us to derive the benefits from participating in what's happening in the EU. We are a pro-European country, and we have offered to Europe, but we have also received a lot from Europe, and I believe that the future of Greece and the future of the EU are intertwined. They are linked closely together. So I think that we need to have such events like this one. We need to give the floor to young people and to hear people's concerns, because it's a shame that in the public dialogue, the most relevant discussion in Europe will have to do with when the review will be concluded here in Greece, what Dijsselbloem said and what Mr. Schäuble stated. It's wrong. I would like to say that the municipality municipality of Athens is actively engaged in this debate on the future of Europe, both in Greece and abroad. So we try to show how dynamic cities are and how important it is for us to bring people closer to Europe. That's our role, because for many years we've been talking about Europe being close to its citizens, but we haven't invested in this link, in the link that can achieve this. And I'm talking about cities and municipalities. They are the link through which this can be achieved. And we know that many European cities and Athens have a lot of active citizens, people who are innovative, people who are pro-European, people who are involved in what's happening around them without actually being members of traditional bodies or agencies. And we see that they actively participate in many actions, and they actually espouse true values of the EU: solidarity, social cohesion, justice, the rule of law, democracy. So the Municipal Authority of Athens has supported civil society from the day that it took office with the Sinathina innovative platform. We're close to all our citizens. We actually support them and they support us, but we want the citizens to come closer to Europe, and this is our joint responsibility. Thank you for your attention, and please forgive me. I have to leave. There's an obligation for me to participate in a panel on e-governance in municipalities. So in a way, I will be participating in the discussion in an indirect way. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening to me, and I think we can proceed. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Mayor of Athens. He has to leave, as he said. He has another obligation. As I remind you, we have to vote. We have to vote on a particular question. So we use our tablet. We go to slido.com. We see this web page. We can use our mobile. EU Dialogues, Crețu, GR. That was the password. This is the password. And the question is, how informed do you feel about EU matters?
While we are waiting for the outcome of the vote, let me remind you that we will start the dialogue with you through questions. We will be taking questions also through the web, Twitter, Facebook, etc., and from various EU information centers all over Greece. So, as I said, we will also take questions from all over Greece. There's live streaming. You can watch this debate tonight all over Greece. Do you feel that your voice is heard in the EU? Yes, no, I don't know. I don't answer. Please do vote, and in a few minutes we will know how you feel about this. It seems that 2 out of 3 citizens in the EU feel that their voice is not heard. That is why it is needed more than ever to launch similar dialogues like this one tonight. This is an initiative of the European Commission. Similar events have taken place in Hania, in Thessaloniki. Actually, 162 times that such dialogues have been organized all over the EU. And of course, we aspire to more. Let us hope that this will be a constructive institution and that such debates will help us understand better what Europe is and how we can improve it, thanks to your comments and suggestions. Are we ready to see the result of the vote? You can prepare your questions, and please do stand up, raise your hand, and please stand up so that I can see you more easily, and of course we'll get the microphone to you as quickly as possible. So 33% yes, 67% no. So most of you feel that you don't know enough about the EU. A first round of comments from our panel. Ms. Crețu. In English, so that I can communicate with her.
It's 31% they know enough about the European Union, and 69% they don't know enough. So can you comment on that?
Thank you very much.
Όχι. Είπαμε αν νιώθετε η φωνή σας ότι ακούγεται μέσα στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση.
Η ερώτηση προφορικά... What she said.
Η ερώτηση φαίνεται εκεί. Θα ψηφίσουμε συνέχεια και για άλλα, κυρία.
You are aware of the policies. It was a different question.
Μα πήγαμε στην ιστοσελίδα και το είδατε. Θα ήθελα παρακαλώ πολύ να προχωρήσουμε με την εκδήλωση για να μπορέσουμε να ακούσουμε και τον κόσμο που ήρθε εδώ για να ενημερωθεί. Δεν αλλάξαμε τίποτα, κυρία Κωνσταντοπούλου. Λοιπόν, η ουσία... Κυρία Κωνσταντοπούλου, τι λέτε? Σας παρακαλώ πάρα πολύ. Η ερώτηση είναι να ακούγεται η φωνή σας, ακριβώς.
So it was given to another, different
Θα ψηφίσουμε στη συνέχεια γι' αυτό.
Someone is shouting from the floor.
Διότι εδώ δεν σέβεστε τον κόσμο καταρχάς που ήρθε εδώ.
Please do show some respect to the audience.
Αδαείς οι πολίτες δεν είναι, κύριε Κωνσταντοπούλου, και εδώ πέρα ήρθαμε να συζητήσουμε ακριβώς επειδή δεν τους θεωρούμε αδαείς. Δεν νομίζω ότι είναι πρέπον αυτό που κάνετε αυτή τη στιγμή. Θα ήθελα να σας παρακαλέσω να συνεχίσουμε και νομίζω ότι εσείς γνωρίζετε πολύ καλά ότι θα πρέπει να συνεχιστεί αυτή η συζήτηση και για να...
You also understand that we have to continue, and I will give you the floor happily shortly.
Παρακαλώ, κυρία Κρέτσου.
Ms. Crețu, please, you have the
First
floor.
of all, I would like to thank you all for being here and to participate to this meeting. I think it's a very important moment to gather all the opinions, also critical opinions about European Union. It's not surprisingly for me because I participated, and I think that we made this mistake for years, not to communicate about what we are doing, and it was a kind of game that we have to stop, in my opinion, that everything that is bad is coming from Brussels, and everything that is good is coming from the national states. So, as I said, I visited, it's my fifth time since I'm commissioner in 2.5 years. As you said, and I am very proud that I have helped a lot Greece during the tough times. I know that you suffered a lot and you are still suffering, but in the same time, things where we would have been Greece without its 80 billion euros that enter into real economy in Greece since you joined the European Union. So I think it's very important to say, because as I am aware that many people are not aware that so many things are done with European funds. As you said, in this building, we invested millions of euro. Tomorrow we'll inaugurate Tempe Valley. I visited schools in Pendelli, Rio, Anti-Rio, hundreds of kilometers of highways, and I am not sure that people know that all these things are coming from European Union, from European funds. But if you see the pictures, how Greece looked like before 81 and how it is now, of course, it's also due to the financial solidarity, and I would like to thank you, Margaritis, who is the chief spokesperson, for joining us, and also Minister HARITSIS. We worked very well, hand in hand, in the last 2.5 years, and I am very proud to congratulate the Greek authorities that in the last 2 years they didn't lost even €1 from the allocation. But we also fought for the change of the regulation, exceptionally for Greece. So I think we have to be very clear what we do from our side. European Union cannot do miracles without member states doing their jobs. Și aș vrea să le mulțumesc și românilor care sunt în sală pentru participare. I just said thank you for the Romanians.
Κύριε Χαρίτση, θα θέλω και ένα σχόλιο από εσάς.
Mr. HARITSIS, we'd like some comments from you on the results of the vote, but on today's discussion. So the result was 70% don't feel that their voice is heard in the EU, and 30% say that they feel their voice is heard. We can hear you.
Καλησπέρα καταρχάς σε όλες και όλους. Νομίζω ότι το αποτέλεσμα στην ερώτηση αν ακούγεται η φωνή των πολιτών στην Ευρωπαϊκή
meaning whether the voice of the people is heard in the EU. I think that the answer speaks for itself. I think it's pretty obvious, and it actually reflects one of the main problems facing the EU today, i.e. this distance, this rift that is being created between societies and decision-making centers. So I think that it is a wager for the near future whether this European Union wants to have a future, whether they can actually narrow this gap and make it smaller. But this it's not enough just to talk about it. We have to actually do something. Deeds are needed. And this is linked to the discussion we had in Parliament this morning in relation to the future of the cohesion policies. The cohesion policies which aim at convergence, because that's the underlying rationale. It's important to create a framework within which countries and regions which are not as developed and which are less, if you like, advantaged can come closer to the more developed regions and countries. This is a very important policy that needs to be pursued further. And let me just say something in relation to in the introduction, and I'm talking about the methodology to how we can continue this discussion later on. So Greece is not one of the most favored countries or less favored, or it hasn't been wronged. Greece has received the funds that it should have received according to the regulations. And I think that this is what we need to look into further, not just today, but also in the future. We need to see how the funds were used in the past and how they're being used now, how the funds are allocated, and how they take into account the internal disparities, regional disparities, but also disparities inside regions, and how these funds meet the real needs of Greek society and the Greek economy. These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. And once we've answered these questions, and I'm sure that we will talk in the second part, we're actually saying a lot. You've put a lot of things on the table. So I think that we will have the opportunity to discuss this later. So first of all, we have to say something on these matters, and then we'll have a clear picture, a more clear picture as to where the discussion should be held, whether we need to have more cohesion or not at an EU level, and how this affects citizens individually, but also the EU as a whole. Mr. Schinas, we'd like a comment from you as well.
Good evening. I believe you gave two different answers to this question. One answer electronically online, which is very clear, but another one, a different one, equally clear, which is your physical presence here tonight, your massive presence here, which is the second answer, a different answer to the question. You want your voice to be heard? And my answer is yes, we are here to listen. That is why we have organized this meeting. As Ms. Sarafoglou said, we have organized 162 similar events all over Europe, and another 22 with senior European Commission executives. Total 185, and most of them are web streamed. So we are in the process of giving our citizens a voice, and I fully agree with that. One more thing. We are discussing the distance between the citizens and the European Commission. This is, of course, a geographical distance to start with, but it is also a psychological distance, a psychological separation. And many tend to say that Schinas is familiar with EU issues. It's as if they imply that he's familiar with the nuclear physics or Byzantine studies. No, sorry. It is high time that we bridge not the geographical distance, but this psychological separation. And we can bridge this distance, this separation, with similar events. We will bridge this distance if commissioners address national parliaments, as Corina did this morning, and as we have done more than 200 times with Juncker commissioners all over the EU, and we will keep bridging this distance in two more ways. First, we should not blame the EU for all evils, and we should stop assigning all good things to national governments. This is what Cameron did in the UK for years, and he got the wrong result. When he proclaimed the referendum, it was simply too late. In other words, it is our responsibility. We should put an end to the view that the EU is all about Brussels. No, it's not about Brussels solely. It should not be about Brussels. It's not a Brussels. It should not be a Brussels-centered organization. If we lose this challenge, then we are lost. The fact that we gathered here in the Technopolis tonight means that the European Commission has gotten the message.
Thank you. Now we can start the dialogue on regional policy, on the NSRF and EU funds. So let me begin with Mrs. Crețu. Can you explain what these are and how they're being managed in the EU?
What is exactly EU funding and the regional policy issues that you're up to?
I don't know to speak in English or I think half of so anyhow, I will split in two because I see many Romanians. We have a big, you know that many people who choose to stay and live and work and in Greece, so for them Greece is a second home. But of course I will say being live and also in Romania and in Greece and in Brussels, I think it's better to speak a bit in English. So first of all, you know that I am responsible for regional policy. This policy is in the treaty and we have 600 billion euro for all 28 countries because UK is still for 2 years full member of European Union, and for development and development of the regions. As I said, in Greece, since the accession, Greece benefited from 80 billion, but as the minister said, it is not a gift. It was financial solidarity because we have these disparities on the map of Europe. We are coming from different backgrounds. We have inequalities not only between West and East, but also inside the countries, also inside inside Greece. You can see the disparities between North and South, in Italy as well, between the North and Mezzogiorno. So these funds are 80% invested in the less developed regions. Less developed regions means regions with GDP per capita less than 75% of average. So that's why they are more concentrated in the new member states, but also in the countries most hit by the crisis, like Greece, Spain, and Portugal, not only new member states. So, but depends very much on the level of administrative capacity of the countries, because everything that it comes to the implementation, it's 100% the responsibility of the member states. And as I always say, money is not everything, because sometimes we have money in Brussels waiting, as we had for Greece, for instance, many phased projects which should have been done already, and now we face for 2014-2020. It is the same in the country I'm coming from, and maybe I will say just a few words in Romanian because there are so many. So, îmi pare foarte bine că sunt foarte bucuroasă să vă salut aici în Atena. Pentru mine este o onoare și sunt, I think it's a town with the most Romanian I visited. So, politica regională este foarte importantă pentru noi toți, pentru țările noastre și sunt convinsă că vom putea lucra împreună. În Grecia am făcut lucruri foarte bune în ultimii 2 ani. Am inaugurat foarte multe lucruri, am lucrat cu guvernul pentru a ameliora viața oamenilor, am vizitat foarte multe școli, spitale și îmi doresc ca și România să reușească Grecia, de pildă,
can achieve what Greece has achieved, which is to unite its territories from north to south by way of a motorway. Tomorrow we will be inaugurating 200 kilometers of motorway, the 6th corridor that connects Thessaloniki and Athens. And that is due to the European funds. It is also a good news for the Romanians, not only for the Greeks, because we all love Greece and many Romanians come to spend their holidays in Greece.
I am very glad to respond, to be able, because it's live also in Romania. So, thank you very much.
Λοιπόν, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Και να περάσουμε σε εσάς τώρα.
Thank you very much. And let us move on to the audience. Could you stand up so that we can see you more clearly? The lady, the gentleman in the back, rather. The gentleman over there. Just a minute so that you can get the microphone.
Καλησπέρα σας.
So, good evening.
Και ευχαριστούμε πολύ για
And
την...
thank you very much. Could you hold it a bit lower down?
Και ευχαριστούμε πολύ για την παρουσίαση.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Zekos. I'm a consultant. I work in many countries, Romania being one of them, Albania, Ukraine, and other countries of the former Soviet Union. This was just a bit about my background. So my question is the following. The result today, the answer to the question, the voting, you saw the answer was 70-30.
No, I did say and... Sorry, my lady, for sure. I said Romania and other countries of the Soviet Union. Like I said after Ukraine, I said that, which is Azerbaijan, etc., etc., to make it very clear. I'm in Romania, so... The question, though, is the following. The results of the counting was 30-70. What was the average in the other countries? You have been in 220 similar events. Can you tell us how do they feel, the citizens of the other countries of the European Union, please? Thank you.
Mrs. Crețu, you have
percentage-wise
in other EU citizens dialogue, so you can tell us what happens in other countries.
Of course, I have participated everywhere, and I think this citizens' dialogue inaugurated by the new president of the Commission from 2 years, it is a very good initiative to engage citizens and to hear the voice of the citizens. I really think that we changed the paradigm with this new Commission, and we are very much prone and keen to the social dimension of Europe, which was not, I don't want to shame and name and blame, but I really think that we are much more on the social dimension. We would like much more to engage citizens, and we want to show what we did, because Margaritis was very right when he said after 10 years, when Prime Minister Cameron said that everything is what is bad is coming from Brussels, it was very hard to convince in 2 months that it's vice versa. So now they will start to realize how many things they are taking for granted. So we speak about diversity, democracy, also financial resources. So a lot of things that we take for granted. I'm coming from a country where we were not allowed to come even to Greece, even not to say about Western Europe. So we are old enough to remember from where we started and young enough to think about the future of our generation. And to be honest, if we don't do the common effort to communicate the added value of European Union, for me it's for the first time in my life when I'm really worried about the future of our children and of our grandchildren. And it's the first time in the last 25 years when I think that the life of our next generation could be worse than ours. So I think this is a moment of introspection, reflection, and these figures speak by themselves how we have to be together in this effort to defend this unique project, which is European Union. It's a...
We'll come back to this on the next session,
okay.
The next part of the session.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like
Mulțumesc.
θα ήθελα πολύ να σας παρακαλέσω αν μπορούμε να έχουμε ερωτήσεις για το πρώτο μέρος, να το εξαντλήσουμε και να περάσουμε στο δεύτερο. Καταλαβαίνω ότι είναι πολύ πιο ενδιαφέρον.
Second part, I know it's much more interesting, but the gentleman over there, the one who's wearing the headphones, they'll bring the roving mic. The lady's on her way. Please tell us your name and be brief. Can you hear me? My name is Tsabias Roumeliotis. I'm from Phokida. I am a journalist and editor, but I have studied regional development. So my question is the following. Greece today is undergoing a crisis. We have different political parties in power in the EU. Maybe this is what makes a problem. Maybe we should start thinking about making the EU member states having the same political regime, like a federal regime, for example. And then federations actually might be able to work together better than now. Mr. Schinas, maybe you can answer, but I think this would be better if we address such questions in the second session. So please be more specific. Ask about regional policy and EU funds. That's the first part of today's discussion. So, Mr. Schinas, you can answer. Well, I don't want to start talking about the federal model of governance, but in the US, where this model applies, they needed 150 years to get it together and to be able to move forward after one war towards a federal model of governance. Here in Greece, or in Europe, excuse me, we've all fought against everybody else. If you look back in history, and we're working together, for only 60 years we've been living together in peace. So I think we need more time to be living together in harmony. We need more years of economic cooperation to pass and to have the single market for some more years. But I agree with you that one of the ways out for our common future may be a federal system. But this is something we can discuss later on. Thank you. Any questions on EU funds, please, and the regional policy as well?
The lady over there, just wait for the mic.
Το όνομά σας παρακαλώ, αν θέλετε.
Ονομάζομαι Θεολογίτου Σοφία.
Sofia Theologitou. Thank you for your introduction. In the new programming period, 2014-2020, a lot of focus has been given to the outcomes of projects, and this is a quality difference. It's not just about absorbing funds. We need specific results, specific outcomes. There's a difference concerning, in comparison with the previous programming period. However, we have the so-called conditionalities, ex-ante conditionalities. These are conditionalities in order for us to be able to implement the operational programs of the NSRF. However, according to the review of the 31st of March, the conditionalities issue is something new for member states and also for the services of the European Commission in Brussels, which slows down the implementation pace. conditionalities are supposed, on the other hand, to help reforms. The moderator, can you ask a question, please? Can you be brief? In other words, the NSRF is not a development tool anymore. It is a fiscal tool. So how can we improve this, especially for the island regions, which are exposed to the migration problem? As a former regional governor in the northern Aegean, I can speak from our experience, and I can tell you that our islands are under tremendous pressure. Mr. HARITSIS, probably.
Mrs. Crețu, you can
No,
start
I just
first.
want to say about the ex-ante conditionalities, the reason that they were introduced in our regulations, because cohesion policy, you spoke already about the quality of the projects. I think cohesion policy cannot operate in isolation. As I said, we have countries and regions where we, like Mezzogiorno, for instance, where we pumped literally billions of euros without seeing growth and jobs. So these ex-ante conditionalities were introduced in order to assure that we have the environment and the conditions and to push member states to have structural reforms. And this is for ex-ante conditionalities. About islands, it's another subject. I will come back in June, and I will visit the most hit islands, Chios and Lesbos, and we'll have, we already have
Islands hit
by the crisis of migrants. The mayor was here. He is a very active member of this network of the mayors dealing with the crisis of, and I would like to thank him. And I know how much burden we have, and we are working hand in hand, Commissioner Avramopoulos and myself, with our funds to assure synergies and to help these islands and regions and cities who have to deal with these urgent things and also with the integration of migrants. It's a lady in blue, it's a Romanian. Here.
Listening to some very good questions, and these questions are very important, and they're made by people who know the subject very well. So let me just say that, in a way, your question answers itself. What do I mean by this? You quite rightly said, and this is something we need to say, but it's something we need to put into practice. It's not just enough to look at the indicators. It's not just enough to look at the absorption of funds. And of course, it's very important to have a high absorption rate or a full absorption rate of available funds, and this is why we've worked so hard. But what a society is interested in is the outcome, the impact of these projects and of these actions, and how it will benefit society. But in order for us to have added value for the economy, what we need to have is the right framework, which will be conducive to growth and which will allow for the best possible absorption of available funds. And the conditionalities, well, this is the role they're trying to play. They want to create the right environment, a favorable environment, which will allow us to make the best possible use of funds in every operational program, bearing in mind the conditions in every given sector. But politically speaking, allow me to say that what is very important and what we must all bear in mind is that we shouldn't just think of absorption for the sake of absorption. I think that's what you implied when making the statement. So what we need to do now that there's a crisis is how the available funds can be put to good use and how they can be best used. Of course, we have ex-ante conditionalities or other management practices and techniques which are introduced in the new programming period. This leads to an additional burden, an administrative burden. But it's up to us to look at the positive side of this. We have to overcome problems, and this is why we're working very closely with the managing authorities and also the ones on the islands. And because you talked about the islands and you linked this to the migration and refugee crisis. The initiatives are not only under the NSRF, we also have other initiatives, and we know that the islands can be beneficiaries, but we also need to provide funds from the national budget in order to deal with the great burden that they have shouldered, because now they're dealing with a European issue, and I'm talking about the migration and refugee crisis. So a lot of things are being done. Mr. Crețu talked about the islands, and she'll be visiting in the summer. We'll be going there together. Okay. So now let me give the floor back to the audience, the lady over there.
Μισό λεπτό να σας φέρουν το μικρόφωνο. Just wait for the microphone, please.
May I respond in Romanian because she's Romanian?
Of course. She will ask.
Maybe.
But she will ask in Greek.
I don't know.
Or in Romanian.
Manuela Marinescu, președinta Asociației.
I'm Manuela Marinescu. I'm the president of the Harmony Romanian Greek Cultural Association. I would like to invite the Commissioner to tell us more about the European funding that is used for the infrastructure in Romania and in Greece, as well as the funding used for supporting schools. We know there's a lot of tension in Europe. Therefore, do you think we will have as much solidarity from rich countries towards poorer countries as we used to have?
O să vorbesc în română, îmi cer scuze, dar cred că fiindu-mi adresată întrebarea în română, în primul rând vreau să le mulțumesc, să vă mulțumesc pentru ceea ce faceți toți românii și pentru că sunt convinsă că contribuiți cu talentul dumneavoastră. Eu am văzut în statistici că în Atena și în Grecia în general lucrează foarte mulți intelectuali români, medici, profesori, iar doamna Marinescu are deja o școală prin care lucrează, o cunosc de foarte mulți ani. Pe de altă parte, întrebarea dumneavoastră vorbește de la sine, pentru că am spus despre proiectele pe care le-am inaugurat. Îmi doresc ca România, care este în primul exercițiu financiar, să ajungă măcar la performanțele Greciei.
And I said that we are somewhat envious in Romania of the successful projects in Greece. All countries have been confronted with issues in the first programming period, but we are getting better. And there are tensions in Europe, as you have said. There are quite a few challenges, Brexit, migration, and other challenges that come up every day. But we can only approach all of these with optimism. Kazantzakis, one of my favorite writers, once said that in order to be successful, you must believe you are successful, and you have to be united. Today in Parliament, we were talking about the future of the cohesion policy. And I think that in that context, the regions have to demonstrate how they can maximize the impact of EU funding. Because our arguments in Parliament and in Council with our future budget proposals will be what the countries are doing, what their achievements are, how well they are performing for all the indicators, what economic growth has been generated by the use of European funding. So our future battle for next year's budget, for the future programming period's budget, will be supported by the achievements of the member states in the cohesion policy field. So I invite the ministers to put pressure on mayors, on presidents of regions, so that they can use the 20 billion that is on Greece's plate for the next programming period. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Greece Commissioners. I have a question as a dual citizen of the US and EU. I've made Greece my home for over 20 years. The major difference that I encounter between the two mentalities, if you will, not cultures, between the EU and Europe, and the EU and the US, is that in Europe we mostly counter ourselves by seeing more obstacles than opportunities. The problem today is not just a financial crisis, it's a job creation crisis in Greece. Infrastructure is wonderful as a quality of life issue, but if you cannot make a living, the life around you doesn't mean very much. Job creation is not only created for blue-collar level infrastructure workers, it is also created for those talented individuals that have succumbed to a brain drain and have exited this country. What are the plans for Europe's funding policies so that Greece can sustain the intelligence, knowledge, and will of those young individuals that have left?
And that's a major issue, Commissioner. And we would like a comment by the Minister next.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very important issue. We are now in Greece, a country who has a lot of, I think, 1 million people abroad. I am coming from a country who has 2.5 million people abroad, here in Greece, but also Italy, Spain mainly. And you are very right that infrastructure is one thing. Another thing is to make this leap to the research, innovation, and that we are trying to do with the countries. And about mentality, you are right. Also, Mr. Kazastaki said if we cannot change the reality, we can change the eyes on how we see the reality, and to see how we can be more optimistic. And you are right in this way of thinking that you know that in United States you have this positive thinking, this optimism, which the law of attraction. So I think it's very important to not lose our hope in our future, because if we lose our hope, it will be the end of the story. But anyhow, we have some facts that affect us, so we cannot ignore them. But we have to find solutions and not to see the obstacles by the opportunities. And you are right, and thank you for this wonderful speech. So first of all, we invest a lot in small and medium-sized enterprises. We have this young guarantee, which is working very well in all the countries. But in the same time, we cannot stop some people who choose. It's a problem of, it's of course a duty of every country to improve the conditions of life in their own country. But if one citizen decides to leave, we cannot stop them. And we have historical disparities that could not be overcome overnight. So if a doctor in Romania would like to go and have 5,000 euro or 6,000 euro in Western countries, we cannot stop them, because in Romania we cannot afford to give them more than 1,000 euro. So this is a matter of choice of every individual. So to stay in the country or to leave. So of course I think it's on the member states to do their duty to do whatever it takes to improve the life of the citizens, to make them not to think about going abroad. But in the same time, this freedom of movement, it was a chance for some millions of people from less developed countries and for the poor countries to open their mind, to go and to travel, to improve their life. And of course, I think we should do whatever it takes at our level, European level, national, and also municipalities, parliaments. But if one family is decided, for instance, these families, they are mixed families, so they decided to come to Greece, how we can stop them, even if they have a chance to earn? It's about culture, it's about mentality. So my question is that, my answer to your question, I like the way you put it. That's why I said it's a wonderful speech. But my answer is that we have to do whatever it takes on our level. And of course, this brain drain is something that affects very much some of the countries. For instance, I am coming from a country where we really don't have doctors anymore because they left, high quality, I mean, they left in different,
Anna, thank you.
Thank you
Let's
for.
take a brief comment from the Minister.
I was too long, sorry. And give to Mark, give also to them, not always to me, because I spoke a lot.
Have that if we don't include the social strata that will actually take charge of the future. We're talking about young scientists, young entrepreneurs, who in the previous years, because of the crisis, but because of the policies that had been implemented, were not able to find work in their country and had to leave the country. And in Greece, this phenomenon was a huge problem. So from 2010 to 2014, in comparison to the previous 5 years, the number of young researchers and PhD holders who left the country increased tenfold. This just shows you the scale of the problem. So what we've been saying, and of course it's not enough to say it, we have to do something about it, and I will try to be as brief and succinct as I can be in explaining what we intend to do, is we want to focus the programs, particularly those that have to do with entrepreneurship, in order to tackle this problem. So what we're trying to do is create new jobs and new quality, permanent or stable jobs. This can be done with targeted calls. We're talking about people who finished university. We're talking about startups. We're talking about new dynamic SMEs that are extroverted. But we're also talking about the eligibility criteria that we use for all calls, for all programs under the new programming period. So we're trying to fund the proposals that create new, high-quality, stable jobs. And to my mind, this is an important difference, quality-wise, linked to compared to the past. But that's not enough, because we know that this is a huge problem. We have a number of interventions that actually try to make use of the NSRF funds, but together with other programs. For example, the new developmental law, where we have earmarked a significant amount of funds under the NSRF. So we're trying to focus entrepreneurship in processing and manufacturing, because that's where we can have creation of such high-quality jobs. And the results we've had so far, very encouraging. 65% of proposals that have been accepted in the first few months that this new developmental law entered into force have to do with the industry, they have to do with manufacturing in general. So I think that this was a change in the right direction. And one last thing, because we talked about SMEs and different interventions, and here I'm talking about social entrepreneurship, which for us is very important. And for the first time, it has been dealt with on an equal footing under all programs. So we have new financial instruments together with the European Commission and together with different funding organizations or financial institutions like the EIB, in order to give liquidity to SMEs that are very small but very dynamic and extroverted, so that they can deal with significant problems. That was the last thing I had to say, and I'm sorry if I was long-winded. So all the efforts that have been made by us in order to help the real economy, well, that's the main aim, to tackle unemployment. The messages we've been getting in the last 1.5 years are encouraging, but it's not enough. That does not suffice. We have a small drop, a small decrease, and this, of course, means that we're not satisfied. We need to work even harder and to exert even greater effort. So this is why we have focused on these programs, and I think that we can help solve the situation.
One question from somewhere in Europe on the web. From Komotini, actually, northern Greece, a question to Mr. Margaritis Schinas, who has spoken less than others. 2 years after the inauguration of InvestEU, the engagement is too low. Schinas, before discussing the so-called Juncker plan, allow me to just briefly comment on the last question about the generation of 400,000 Greeks who fled the country during the crisis. I'm very familiar with this generation. I know these Greeks. It so happens that there's something peculiar, but at the same time optimistic about this generation. These Greeks should be angry with their country, but in reality, they have become even more passionate with Greece. They love Greece. They are keen to return to Greece as soon as possible.
Κυρία Κωνσταντοπούλου, σας παρακαλώ. Αφήστε τον να τοποθετηθεί και
Someone is shouting from the audience.
Γιατί το λέτε αυτό? Εσείς είστε ευγενείς.
So people
δεν ξέρω τι έχετε πάθει
will gain valuable experience, and it seems that they will come back to Greece as soon as they can. Comments without microphone.
Εσείς είστε ευγενείς. Αφήστε τον κύριο.
Τους έδιωξε ανάγκη.
Okay, the country did not chase them away. They had to leave. They felt compelled to leave, says Mr. Schinas. And let me conclude by saying this. These people will be the measure of our success in the future, because they will be the first one who will return to Greece as soon as things improve. And they will return to build something, to create something. So I'm rather optimistic about these people. Now, about the Juncker plan, just a few words. It is the third arm of the economic mix of the EU. It's what was missing, because the EU in the last years actually did two things. It was about structural reforms and trying to exit the financial and economic crisis since 2009. The criticism in the beginning was we don't have enough funds. I still remember the Eurosceptics saying that we will never be able to find the funds, etc. Well, we did manage to find these 300 billion, and 180 have already been disbursed to the real economy. We have created 250,000 jobs. Greece has benefited also from the Juncker plan. We are now at about 1 billion euros that we have benefited through the Juncker plan, but it's more than that. The Juncker plan is not just a traditional assistance program or a subsidy program. No, we're leveraging these funds with private funds. Second, we don't just build bridges and highways. No, we invest in the new economy, green field investments, digital skills, research and development, the agri-food industry, and so on and so forth. So 2 years, 2.5 years down the road, I believe the message is clear. Investors are keen to benefit from the Juncker plan, and Ms. Crețu knows that very well. She manages such funds that are critical to the success of this program. We have already proposed expanding this program until 2020, and for funds to reach up to 500 billion. The moderator, the minister, and then the commissioner. Indeed, the Juncker plan is very, very important. We try to benefit from these funds. Another characteristic of the Juncker plan that we should all know is that there's no allocation key per country. It's one global fund, and it's a competitive fund. Projects are in competition to each other, irrespective of country, and our country will, of course, compete, despite being a small country. Despite being a small country, Greece has managed to rank among the first countries who have benefited from the Juncker plan after the 5 big European countries. As Mr. Schinas said, the key here is complementarity between funds and other resources from the regional fund and other EU funds in order to implement projects that could not otherwise be implemented. And this is what we do with the new infrastructure fund and other funds. There are many funds from the Juncker plan and from other funds, mind you. And this is a great news for Greece.
Then we can go on to the next.
On this subject, I really think that Mr. Schinas was very clear, explaining what this plan is. It's a financial instrument, additional on top of our cohesion policy. We also invite all the regions and member states to find a way of blending our funds and maximize the impact. And as Mr. Schinas said, Greece was among the first countries, and I'll be very glad that if you can exchange some good experience in this field with other countries. Finishing without my portfolio about cohesion policy, I just want to say that I am glad to announce you that I already signed a few days ago from this 20 billion euro, almost 2 billion for transport, environment. So you already contracted some of this money, and I would like to urge you to make the implementation faster, because, as I said, this will be our proof that we need this policy. And of course, we will work hand in hand with Vice President Katainen, with other colleagues in order, with Moedas, Avramopoulos, in order to blend all these funds that we have, Horizon 2020, research, innovation, Erasmus, and all these European instruments that we have to be aware of, about their existence and the possibilities. Because, to be honest, in many cases and in many member states, I think that member states are not fully aware about all the instruments that we offer. We are here to help. We are here, by the way, we are not Soviet commissioner. We are European commissioner. We are here to help. We are here to assist and not to impose anything. It's up to the member states how they use the money. But of course, we offer technical assistance, expertise, everything that you need in order to maximize the impact of the European funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Λοιπόν, να περάσουμε εδώ στο δεύτερο μέρος. Ερωτήσεις για την Ευρώπη, απορίες, ανησυχίες,
concerns about Europe, so you can tell us your mind. So let's start from here. You haven't spoken yet. The microphone's coming.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I'm 82 years old. Let me say to Mr. Schinas that we from northern Greece, one of the Greek regions, for those of us who see decisions made far away from us in Athens, well, it's the same impression that the average European gets about Brussels. That's normal. It's the central government vis-à-vis the regions. The commissioner spoke in Romanian, and it's great. Can you please ask a question, says the moderator? Please proceed with your question. Success should not be taken for granted. Democracy should not be taken for granted. Cohesion should not be taken for granted. This is what we aspire to, enjoy the same benefits, the same quality of life with other Europeans. Do you have a question at the end of the day? No, it seems no. So next, the gentleman over there.
Μα τι είναι αυτά που λέτε.
I'm not selecting anyone. I'm just giving priority to those who raise their hands. Ms. Konstantopoulou, priority is given to simple citizens, not to politicians. Please do respect that.
Λέω προτεραιότητα έχουν πολίτες.
Priority to the citizens.
Είχατε θεσμικό ρόλο, κυρία Κωνσταντοπούλου. Αυτό που
No,
κάνετε
you're not a simple citizen, Ms. Konstantopoulou. You were a politician. Please bear with me.
δεν σας καταλαβαίνω πραγματικά. Εσείς
I really don't understand. You're a noble lady. So the gentleman. I'm an economist, a business consultant. I had raised my hand. The moderator, there are too many who have raised their hands. As I said, please do stand up, because otherwise I cannot see you. I understand you're all keen to speak. Ms. Konstantopoulou is familiar with this. I'm sorry, this is an open dialogue. Please stop shouting. I don't have any preferences. I'm just giving the floor to those who raise their hand first. I have a question related to the first part of our discussion, which is very important, says the gentleman, shouting among the audience. My first question is as follows. In Romania, comments without microphone. So in Romania, there's a program for startup companies. The government in Romania took a decision and awarded 450 million euros in one chunk, 45,000 euros to 10,000 companies, entities in general. A similar program in Greece involved 72 million euros, and we financed even pastry shops. I mean, this is not, I'm sorry, these are not startups. This is not the new economy. Then we have used up 600 million euros over 6 years for similar programs. I hope that this year, the decision that the Greek government will take will be different, so that you finance real startups. In Italy, can you please be brief? Please do sum up. Italy offers up to 1.5 million euros to startups. And actually, they're not giving grants to unemployed. They subsidized loans, the interest rate, which is a zero interest rate. So, Mr. Minister, can you find additional funds in order to help real startups and not just pastry shops? And one question to the Commissioner. We need a tool for the evaluation of programs concerning the question as to whether money has benefited the real beneficiaries, those who really needed the money. So, does the Commission intend to evaluate the outcomes of programs and various financial instruments in order to confirm that the monies went in the hands of real beneficiaries and that they were not wasted?
One thing, because I think it's more for the Mr. Minister, I just want to say that for us, research and small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone of every economy, and we really encourage member states to use this. And Mr. Minister will explain more what Greece is doing, because it's doing a lot. But you are right that sometimes under the name of, how to say, deprived urban areas, we do things like that are not really morally or result-oriented. but I am not aware that in Greece to have such a thing. Anyhow, the money are approved at the national level. European Union approved only huge infrastructures, the projects more than 50 million euro. The rest is in the hands of the national states to decide where to go.
Just a small point. I was not referring to the national authorities. I was referring to the European Commission, and it was a very specific question, because when a national authority is approving programs, from my expertise, since I am a business consultant and I'm running programs for many years, it's not inside the specifications of any program the use of any tool or any infrastructure that is going on. Now, the period from 2014 and 2020 is a better period in that. It includes also users, but if it's necessary to focus on users, so we will have more efficiency on the funding and the use of funds, will it be a tool to assess the use of each infrastructure that is made more or less in the public sector, not on the private sector? For example, we give some millions to probably some ministry or some authority, just a small, to some authority to use it, but we need to assess if the people are using it as well. I think this is the main question.
We don't give millions to the public authorities, maybe just for the salaries of the people who are working on the field of European cohesion, but we really don't give to, we invest in reconstruction for instance, of public institutions, and of course we are assessing, we have all level of auditors from the national to from the commission. We have, so we do whatever it takes to be sure that the taxpayers' money are well invested. From this point of view, I also don't agree totally that a patisserie is not a good business, because if it's creating jobs, why not? So,
Minister?
Minister.
First of all, let me say that criticism is constructive, and I think you mean well when exercising this criticism. So I'll respond by saying that we wanted to have an open consultation, and this is what we did for all calls. And we did it from the start, and we were actually accused of keeping this period, this preparatory period, going on for too long. We wanted to make use of all the comments, and we wanted to include it in the calls, in the call for proposals, because we wanted to see what the real needs of the economy were. That's what I had to say in relation to the calls. And let me correct you here. I know that this was an announcement that was made just some hours ago, so maybe you're not fully aware of what have happened. There's an increase in the budget in all three calls for SMEs, and it covers startup companies as well. And this increase by 19 million that we announced today at noon, we give the opportunity to all applicants who are scored over 50 to enter the program. I think that this is an important development, and this is something that happened in the last few hours. So I think it's actually a way to meet this high demand, because there was a high demand for this specific programs. So there was an increased demand, and this is something that proves that the calls were successful, i.e. that there was so much interest by so many beneficiaries engaged in different professional activities. And even though I agree with the Commissioner, pastry shops are not eligible for that specific call. But anyway, I just know that pastry shops under that specific call were not eligible. But anyway, anyway. So it's very important that these particular calls actually had such a high interest in them, and we did our best even at the very last minute in order to be able to do the best we could. Just one last thing, and this is something I mentioned before, I'm going to repeat it in order for it to be crystal clear. We're not only sticking here, not just these calls, we will have new financial instruments. I don't know if you've been made aware of these new instruments, like the new fund, the other fund where you have access to financing which is outside the banking sector, so under favorable terms, liquidity is provided to SMEs. So we're trying to cover as many professional activities and many needs that SMEs have. So new startups and the new forms of entrepreneurship need to be fostered. They need to be promoted. And this is what we're focusing on under the new programming period, according to what we've planned. And I think this also reflects the priorities of the Commission, but also our priorities as well.
Thank you, the gentleman over there. Vangelis Messinias, Chairman of the Chamber of Lesbos. I represent the businesses of our tormented island and the businesses of the northern Aegean. We have received the vast part of incoming refugees and migrants. Our community has shown courage and solidarity. However, there are many problems. I'm not just talking about regional inequalities. We have experience of inequality. We are islanders. We know the disadvantages suffered by islands, also for businesses and for entrepreneurship. But most importantly, the demise of our businesses comes closer because of the implications in tourism. My question to the Commissioner is it part of your plans to create a fund, an entrepreneurship fund, specifically for the islands, so that we can finance even existing companies, existing businesses, not just startups? Because in the islands, we are now in the process of de-investing. So could we expect a new financial instrument that could support entrepreneurship and existing businesses, including, of course, startups, but not just startups? Thank you.
As I said, I will visit in June also your island, Lesbos and Chios. I had today a meeting with the Minister of Maritime, and we already have in DG Regio a special point dealing with islands, with the specificities, and of course islands who are dealing with migrants are in a more difficult situation, and we will be there together in June. So maybe Mr. Schinas, because he knows Greece better and also migrants issue.
Schinas, we met with the mayors of all 5 islands under maximum pressure because of the migration flows a few weeks ago. There are so many issues related to the first wave of the crisis, so to speak, the creation of the hotspots, the separation of those who should enjoy international protection, asylum, etc., from those who are under a different legal regime. So that was the first wave. We completed this effort with some success. It was then when we experienced the largest pressure, the largest actually after the end of the Second World War. Now, the mayors said exactly the same thing, that now it's high time to reorganize, to focus on growth after the first shock, so to speak. There are many instruments around, on the regional and national level. President Juncker said to the 5 mayors, I'm sending you Corina Crețu, and she will deal with the problem. So I look forward to June. She will be there. Please welcome the commissioner. In June, she will be on the spot, and the minister will accompany the commissioner so that she deals with problems on the spot. Mr. HARITSIS, anything on that?
2 important things in my mind. Now, first of all, and this is more general, we said this in the beginning, and in the morning I was able to discuss this in Parliament with the Commissioner. One of the things we need to look at for the next programming period, meaning how we can move forward, is that this distribution of funds cannot have as a sole criterion the GDP of a region. We need insularity. For us, insularity is an important criterion. It's already part of the discussion, and we're getting support from DG Regio on this, and I think this is very important to note. This has to do with the next steps, with how we move forward. And I know this, and you know it better than we do, that there are other problems. There are some indigenous inherent problems because of insularity, and this affects production and productive capacity on the islands. I went to Lesbos. I discussed this with the Chamber and other agencies. So what we've done as a government in the last few months is that we've recognized this problem, and at the end of 2016, we drew up a special development program for the Aegean Islands. I'm talking about the 2 regions, and we committed funds under the Public Investment Program of Greece in order to implement actions and projects that cannot receive funding from EU funds under this programming period. And let me say that this doesn't only have to do with financing, it means that everybody has to work together. All stakeholders need to come up with proposals that can be implemented and can bear results. So we're working together with all the bodies and authorities on the island, and I think that this initiative that I just mentioned will work together with other initiatives that, and I'm also talking about the visit of Commissioner Crețu to the islands. The lady over here has asked for the floor.
Marina Curbella. I'm a journalist. I have 2 questions to the Commissioner. Commissioner, your Commission is planning for the new programming period, and I know that you focus on a more social Europe. Will this be reflected in reality on the basis of specific criteria? This is my first question. And second, I have my own web page, and I keep preaching that each European citizen can enjoy support from European funds wherever he is, in any country. Does this facilitate movement of businesses from one country to another?
Commissioner, it was for you the question, if you want to answer.
So we have just had the first round of discussion in the college this week about social pillar. I think social dimension is very important for the future of our policy, because I really think that we are here in this moment of tension because, as I said, we put a lot of emphasis in the last 10 years on austerity and how to deal with the crisis, losing the side of the social inequalities. And we have on the map of Europe so many inequalities, so social dimension for me is very important. And in April, the Commission will adopt the package of social pillar, and I really think that is important. And you are right, I want to thank you for making publicity to our funds. Maybe Margaritis will also debrief you on the stage of social pillar, which is really a very important issue for President Juncker and for the Commission as a whole.
Social Europe, this is one of our priorities. The Commissioner and President Juncker will present a very important initiative end of April, We will be talking about the European pillar of social policy with new interesting proposals. The Commission has discussed this for the first time in Strasbourg just some days ago. Now, and the other thing you said, Mrs. Corbella, you're right. You're right. There are 28 NSRFs. You're quite right. And this is why we have the single market. This is why Europe offers equal opportunities to all its citizens. This is why the people who left us mostly went to other EU member states. They gain experience, knowledge, and someday they will come and bring everything here to Greece and pass all of this knowledge on to others. It's part of the soft power that the EU has. Any other questions? The gentleman over there.
Έχουμε και σε εσάς, κυρία Κωνσταντοπούλου. Είστε η επόμενη ερώτηση.
I will come to you as well, Ms. Konstantopoulou. You are next. You are next. I will come to you as well. I'm Adrianos Michalaros, chairman of the Industrial Chamber of Piraeus. I represent industrial businesses. Many thanks, first of all, to the representation of the European Commission in Athens. I know that you work very hard, and Mr. Schinas, you must help the representation in Athens. They don't have enough staff. Well, we are small businesses, industrial businesses. We cannot cope with the financial instruments of the EU. I mean, so complex and so cumbersome. We cannot benefit from your programs. Anyway, you said something else about psychology, about the mood. Yes, we have to improve our mood. We are, the producers, and we feel that we're not treated equally, although theoretically we are equal according to the Constitution. The banks have imposed capital controls. We are taxed to death. Profit is punished. We cannot work like this anymore. The country cannot produce anything under such circumstances. So we need simple measures in order to improve the mood in this country. We can make it. We have lots of capabilities. There's lots of potential. You know that. But all this theory must become reality. We need Europe on our side. And I'm afraid that our children who left the country will not return that easily. We are preparing an event on technical education, by the way, in order to start producing technicians, technical experts again, because the country had stopped producing technical staff. So you need to support this young generation. So my question is, does the European Commission intend to simplify the procedures? Because otherwise it is impossible for us to engage with the EU financial instruments. And also, can the banks help? What are you going to do for the SMEs? Because if the SMEs do not produce, then it's the end. The message we are receiving from the EU is that Brussels don't like SMEs. I'm sorry, but we are destroying the backbone of our economy, SMEs. Who wants to answer this?
Let me talk a bit about simplification. Our commission, the Juncker Commission, has committed itself. It's one of its announcements. We believe on big. We want to deal with what is truly of pan-European interest, and whatever is bureaucratic, whatever can be done better at a regional or national level, well, we don't deal with that. So before the Juncker Commission, the Commission proposed 130 legislative acts. So the current Commission only proposes 23. So the message, I think, is pretty clear. We have actually done something to improve the situation. Now I'd like to say that with both hands, I would like to say that small entrepreneurs must help Greece recover. It's good to have large investments, it's good to have large plants and factories, but the backbone of Greece are small businessmen and medium-sized businessmen. We have, and the minister already mentioned that we have many such actions in place, but we also have a huge problem that we must speak of, since we're speaking frankly. I remember when I was growing up in Thessaloniki, my neighborhood, I lived in a small middle-class neighborhood, and there were many plumbers, there were many technicians, there were many small shops with craftsmen. And when I graduated from university in the mid-1980s, all these people had disappeared. There was nobody there anymore. No plumbers, no craftsmen. The question is, where did these people go? Where did they disappear? They went to the state. They went to the state because in Greece we had the state acting as an employer. It actually employed many of these former craftsmen who gave up their trade and their craft, and now, because we see that under the given situation, there's a change of the role of the state. So these people must be put back into production, and they must become what they used to be. And I think this is already the case, like in agriculture, like in processing of food, manufacturing. But maybe for the next programming period, it would be very useful for Greece to have a big national program on skills. And I think this will not be wasted. And a quick comment from Mr. HARITSIS. Please be brief, because the Commissioner would also like to add some things. I know this is a huge discussion, but we are limited for time, and we want people to ask as many questions as possible. I'm going to be very brief. A lot of the things that we heard are accurate. We are not trying to embellish things. Reality is what it is. It is harsh, particularly for the people who work hard, for laborers. I tried to give you specific interventions and how we can finance SMEs. I gave you examples, so small entrepreneurs in Greece. And I think that this is something that has to do with 99% of the companies in Greece. So 99% of our businesses are small and medium-sized businesses, so we need to help them. There's another thing. We also have very small sizes or even micro enterprises in Greece. And this means that they cannot go global. They cannot leave sometimes the country. So we want to have synergies and clusters between small enterprises, because in this way they will be able to join forces, and then they'll be able to become more extroverted and compete globally. So apart from financing, and I agree with you, and you talked about the institutional part and bureaucracy and procedures, all that's very important. And let me be very specific. I'll talk about initiatives that were taken recently. In November 2016, just a few months ago, two important bills were adopted in Parliament. One has to do with making it much easier to set up a business and also having to do with the licenses required for businesses. So I think the real economy was expecting this for some time now. So what we're trying to do is to reduce the burden, the administrative burden, both for the public administration and for the businessmen themselves. And because we will have an ex-ante control and not an ex-post control, not an ex-ante control when it comes to licensing, things will become much easier. And one last thing, I know I've spoken for too long. Let me talk about increasing liquidity. You know that there's a problem with the banking sector, and this is why for the NSR programs, in order for all this not to be dead letter, but in order for these calls to be implemented into practice, we have created the escrow account, which allows us for the first time to provide support to these companies, meaning they no longer need a bank guarantee, which was the case in the past. So I'm not saying that all these initiatives by themselves tackle all the problems that have accumulated in the Greek economy for decades, but I think that we're moving in the right direction, and I give the floor to the Commissioner now.
I just want to say that for me, for the first month, simplification was the first priority, because everywhere I go, I see that many of the beneficiaries are complaining about our regulations. which becomes very complicated. I was member of European Parliament for 8 years, and I remember that every time when we spoke about simplification, in fact, we added more and more regulations. So now we are working on simplification hand in hand with the member states. As I said, many of things are not the requirements of the European Commission. So it also, I would like to congratulate that also Greek government is working on simplification. I am really angry to see young people giving up to use our funds just because this policy becomes more, it's very complicated with a lot of regulation. And to give you an example, we are working now to see how we can go with a single set of rules, because I think this is a big burden for beneficiaries. For instance, if somebody wants to make a project of broadband from our funds, we have a lot of conditionalities in our regulation. If it is to be made from the Rural Development Fund, they don't have so many conditionalities. So it's very important to put all these things together and to make the life easier for the beneficiaries. And I assure you that we are trying to do so for the next programming period. Thank you. And the legislation is adopted by the Council and the European Parliament, not by the Commission.
Κατευθείαν στην ερώτησή σας. Είστε έμπειροι, ξέρετε καλά. Λέω να μην προηγηθεί.
Well, it's your turn, Ms. Konstantopoulou. If you have a question, a real question, please, not a comment. First of all, you should not fool people. This is not a dialogue with citizens. This is a dialogue with those who received a certain email and a personal invitation. Well, were you among those, Ms. Konstantopoulou? Well, we know each other here. We know very well that a large percentage of those present here are not here as a coincidence. Do you have a question, says the moderator? If you, Commissioner, really want a dialogue, genuine dialogue with citizens, go to an auditorium without asking for ID cards or without security checks. I'm sorry, Ms. Konstantopoulou, says the moderator, this is not a question. So you have forged the result of this dialogue. Ms. Konstantopoulou, there's no forging here. You saw the result of the question, of the vote, the electronic vote. And someone said in the beginning something about populism. Well, giving a voice to the people is not populism. Commissioner, you've come to a country which the European Commission oppresses. You are in a country where you and Mr. Schinas are violating democracy. We have this is the demise of our democracy. In 2015, the Greek people in July voted no against all those that you are implementing today. The Greek people voted no. The Greek people, you see, I have reaction from the representatives of the government, I'm sorry, but the Greek people voted no against what you are doing today against Greece. And you and the government and your and the minister next to you are oppressing the country. So my question is the following: how come you have the nerve to come to a country that you do not respect, to visit a people you do not respect, to a democracy you are destroying, and now you're telling us about monies, about funds, and supposedly development? This is unbelievable, while you are still trying to reduce, to cut down on pensions in full agreement with this government. You are selling out all tools at the disposal of this country for growth. You are trying to sell out the public power corporation. The moderator, can you please conclude? Konstantopoulou. Ms. Sarafoglou, you have talked too long. So, Commissioner, continues Ms. Konstantopoulou, a former member of the Parliament, can you look at Greeks in the eyes and tell them that you have imposed a dictatorship, the dictatorship of the European Commission. And Mr. Schinas, would you dare explain how in the summer of 2015 you conspired with the government and you dissolved the parliament in order to rig the result of the referendum? You're maintaining that the country chased away young people. No, it's not the country. Ms. Crețu, young people do not leave Greece because they want to live. It's because they cannot survive in this country under such circumstances. The moderator, please try to conclude. Konstantopoulou, you're imposing living conditions that are not humane. Can you find the courage and the sincerity to answer openly my questions? Openly. Because here you are rigging this dialogue. This is not a genuine, open dialogue, I'm afraid. The moderator, I think you have had enough time to present your views. Konstantopoulou, this is what you are. We have had enough of your propaganda, says Ms. Konstantopoulou. You should be ashamed of the role you are playing. You should be ashamed of what you represent.
European Commission. So if I go in the European Parliament and ask for extraordinary measures to change the regulation in favor of the citizens of Greece, people are dying everywhere. Really, really, everywhere. Come to live in Romania if you don't like in Greece. We do whatever we can. We do whatever we can to help Greece. And this is your sense for what we are doing. You are going, if you go, it's not 1 kilometer of highways without European money in this country. Not one European, not 1 kilometer in this country. It's an insult. You just know to insult.
Can a young man speak? Μπορεί να ακουστεί ένας νέος? First, that young people in Greece are leaving because they cannot be heard. Their voice cannot be heard. That's the only reason.
Now I want to do my question. You can think. I would like to know your thoughts on an opinion which has hovering over my head for some time now. It is the matter of paid and unpaid internships. I am at the stage of my life where I'm about to graduate and I'm considering my next career options. And I cannot help but notice, I cannot help but feel marginalized when I discover an internship I'm interested in, but I am excluded automatically because I don't have the funds to support myself, since the monthly allowance is barely enough to even pay the rent, especially in Brussels, the heart of Europe, where most important institutions are. I believe that a lot of young people who have done paid internships here can testify to my thoughts. I'm not going to mention the unpaid internships. There is a term already about them. It's called volunteering. So basically, yes, next. So basically, we have the illusion of same chances, since students without enough funds to support themselves, or who do not come from a rich background, are excluded, are in a worse position than students who are from a wealthy background. I believe that this is sustaining a situation where the good internships and the good places are reserved for the privileged few. Now, concluding, I believe that it's not a matter of equality, it is a matter of justice. Because I believe equality is to give everyone the same, but justice is to give everyone what it deserves. And I do not feel the same when I'm going to apply for an internship. I'm not feeling the justice. What can I propose? I have a proposal. Would it be so hard for the European Commission and the European Parliament to legislate some regulation, some requirement, as when we're applying with our CV and our motivation letter, just send some official paper stating our income, how good is our income, so there can be justice. The amount of the allowances can't be split. Thank you. That is my question. Thank you.
About paid or unpaid internships. Our policy in the European Commission is that all our interns through the white paper are paid. We do not have unpaid interns, and we believe that internship has a meaning when it is paid. Of course, in the market, things are different, and sometimes the competency is not ours, it's at a regional or national level. And since I have the floor, Mrs. Sarafoglu, unfortunately, Mrs. Konstantopoulou did not stay to hear the answers to the questions she shouted out to us. And I'd like to say for the 185 public dialogues we've had all over Europe, the rules were the same every time. They were open dialogues just like they were here. Now, as to what we do in Greece today and how we apply it, I think we all know that in Greece we apply the program that was adopted with majority by the parliament. And she was the one who was the Speaker of the House in August of 2015 when this was adopted. Mr. HARITSIS, would you like to make a comment, or let's hear from somebody else? Some more questions? Yes, please.
I've been asking for the floor for the last hour. Well, I understand, but, you know, I wish we could stay here until tomorrow morning.
Λίγο ευγένεια πάντως δεν βλάπτει. Θα σας δώσω. Όλοι θέλουν να κάνουν ερώτηση. Το καταλαβαίνω.
Keep calm, please. I had raised my hand 1 hour ago.
Θα μιλήσετε στη...
Comments without microphone. I will give you the floor right away. We have just 10 minutes.
This is...
I'm Orestis Matsoukas, President of the Association of Young Entrepreneurs. We visited the entire Greece in the context of a program supported by the European Commission. So we visited each and every city in Greece, promoting financial instruments, EU funding, etc. So we set up a roadshow in 12 cities all over Greece in cooperation with the chambers, municipalities, regions, etc., and universities. What made an enormous impression on me is that there was no information, despite the efforts of the Commission, of the representation, etc. There was no awareness among people about where they will find information about the Juncker plan, the NSRF, etc., etc. So there is an information gap here, and we should try to resolve this problem. Now we're talking about 282 million, up to 1 billion with the leveraged funds. So what can we do in this direction? The Minister, Mr. HARITSIS. First of all, allow me to say that I agree with you about the fact that information is very important. Otherwise, we are creating multi-speed beneficiaries of those who have ample information and those who are deprived of any information. So this is a very important problem. We are working on this, but I disagree on your description because I've been in all 13 regions all over Greece. I agree that there are many questions that we could have answered on a more technical level. However, we have improved, I think, in terms of information in the following way. In our ministry, and in cooperation with the European Commission, we have set up various information hubs and portals using social media, setting up special offices at the management authorities concerning entrepreneurship, etc. So we have dealt with many, many questions, and it seems that people have found the right channel to communicate with the European Commission. Don't forget the 4 invitations concerning the operational program of entrepreneurship, innovation, and competitiveness. We have received some 85,000 questions that we have answered, mind you. So it's not all black. So we have done our homework. We have improved, we have informed people, and we have improved the management of operation programs. Of course, there's still a lot to be done. I agree with you. We will introduce additional new innovative tools, and we will keep trying. But we are trying, rest assured, in a more structured and formal way compared to the past. Sometimes people are misled, there is misinformation, there's fake news, so we're trying to formalize information in cooperation with the intermediary bodies and the management authorities as well as the regions. We're trying to structure information because, yes, I do agree, information is crucial. We will keep improving, though. Thank you.
2 more questions. The gentleman in the back and the lady over there. We've run out of time. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask a question to the Commissioner. My name is Athanasopoulos Apostolos. I am in Greece, a national mediator of 8 federations in Greece. So I'm a Roma. When we set up these federations, we represented the Greek Roma, and I know that there are many Roma in Romania, and there is inequality. So in Greece, we rallied together, we became representatives of the Roma, then we became representatives, and then we were asked to become even more representative of the Roma than before. So you saw the answer to this question. 70% said that their voice is not heard and 30% is heard. But 100% of the voices of Roma are addressed to Europe. We want diversity. We want everything that the EU has to offer in order for the Roma to be included into the population of the EU on an equal footing. So what about entrepreneurship, education for the Roma? How have money being given to Greece for the Roma in all these sectors. We have, what's the population? Is it 130,000 Roma living in Greece? Is it 500,000? So what do you go by? Do you see the actual number or the numbers reported by Greece to the Commission regarding the number of Roma living here?
First of all, I think you as a leader of the Roma organization, you have a very important role. Everywhere in these countries, the leaders, they have a very important role. I was there every year when we spoke in the European Parliament about the strategy for integration of Roma people. We are doing a lot, and we have a lot of good examples. For instance, from the Romanian delegation, it is a member of European Parliament, Roma, maybe you know him, Damian Drăghici. He is one of the the only Romanian who gained a Grammy winner for doing traditional Roma music everywhere. So I really think that it's very important to change the mentality, because I will be very honest with you. I was in Italy when it was a bit of aggressivity on the Roma population. And I spoke with the gendarme near Rome. And they said to me, we are paying from the municipality the buses to go to take the people from the Roma community to go to school. My children are not benefited from this, this kind of generosity, but in the same time, they don't send children to the school, they send to the streets. So this is a kind of mentality we have to change together, and we have to work together. And in our social inclusion, social pillar, we spoke this week, Roma population has a really a very important role. And we said about vulnerable people, which are also Roma people, which has to be integrated, because if we segregate population, I think this will be a nuclear bomb on the longer future. So you can count on us that we are doing, but I think should be a reciprocal work. As people like you, as I said, you can be role models, people who are doing universities, who wants to go to school, who wants to engage in businesses, in entrepreneurship. We are here to help, and I am sure that national authorities also help the Roma population. Thank you.
Μια κουβέντα. Ναι, ελάτε. Μία όμως, κύριε Χαρίτση, για να προλάβει και η κυρία να ρωτήσει.
The last question, 20 seconds, 20 seconds. So I add to what the Commissioner said. National authorities, there are special programs under the NSRF. I'm talking about the European Social Fund for the training of Roma. The Ministry of Labour is now preparing them. They will be soon included under the NSRF. And for the first time, this government made the decision some months ago to set up a special secretariat for Roma in the Ministry of Labour to deal with the many problems specific to the Roma population in Greece. Thank you very much. So I give the floor to the lady, and that's the last question. Selmanidi is my name. I'm a journalist in a journal, in a newspaper. I also represent a business initiative with 2,500 smaller and medium-sized enterprises. It's a non-profit, and I'd like to apologize from the outset as a woman and as a Greek citizen for what was heard previously by somebody else. They do not express the Greek people. I'd like to say that I was deeply affected. I was very upset. What you heard by the other person who shouted does not represent the average Greek. And they do not actually reflect the Greeks in general, because they're fighting. They're still standing up. They're trying hard to invest in entrepreneurship. And people are staying here, and they want to stay in Greece, and they support Greece with all their might. This is what I'm saying. I know that a lot of Greeks are suffering, and unfortunately, those who suffer the most never open their mouths and never speak. And they're not represented neither in the parliament nor anywhere else. So they stay and they fight. And my question now is the following. Given the opportunity of your visit tomorrow to a road which was just completed in Tembi, this big highway, and the day after that, I know that you will be going to a waste management plant in Western Macedonia, and this was done, and it was a PPP, a public-private partnership. Now, with our GDP, which has gone down by 25% compared to what it used to be in the past, do you believe that these public-private partnerships, as they are expressed under the Juncker plan, but also in simple PPPs, so do you think that is this a tool that can help more? And the question is, if so, how can you further strengthen these public-private partnerships? And now let me talk about the cyclical economy, which right now is a priority in the European Union. And I'd like to hear from you how you intend and how you design to finance actions in the cyclical economy and to help us as a country, because we have this well-known problem with waste management. So how can you help us gaining more, to have more jobs through the cyclical economy and more growth? Thank you very much, and I hope that this message of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship in Greece needs the help and support of Europe. And I want you to know that, because I know you're very sensitive when it comes to these matters. Thank you very much.
I just want to...
Υπάρχει μια καθυστέρηση στη μετάφραση.
Sorry.
No problem. Υπάρχει μια καθυστέρηση στη μετάφραση, γι' αυτό η Επίτροπος δεν απάντησε αμέσως. Ελάτε. You can go on with the question.
I just want to thank you for your comments. Of course, I'm shocked, to be honest, by this aggressivity, because I really think that we, at least this Commission, has done everything possible to help Greece in the last 2.5 years. Everything. We changed the regulation just from Greece. But of course, this is historic handicaps that comes from the history of our countries. I also come from a poor country where people are dying, as she's saying, but we don't have a chance just to go together and to fight together and to improve things from inside. If we start fighting among ourselves, where we should go? Thank you very much for what you said. Yes, there is a big problem with the waste management. We had 1 hour discussion with the Ministry of Environment today. Greece is paying a lot of fees to the European Court of Justice, and what I will visit in Western Macedonia with this public-private, it shows that we could reverse the situation. We should, this is the sector which should create more opportunities, jobs, growth, and we have stopped, and we are very much concerned that Greece will not fulfill this ex-ante conditionalities that we have on waste management, and we are doing whatever it takes to help with technical assistance, with expertise, we said, in order for Greece not to lose money and not to pay, because you already are paying very well. And so this public-private is working, and as we said, it's up to the minister to tell you more of what we are doing in order to improve this kind of projects. But I'm really proud because of this project, because I saw that many of the public administration mayors, they are reluctant to use the money in the waste management, but this is part of civilization. We have to do it. So, and also Tempi, you know better than me that it's a historical project in the history of Greece, and I am sure that we all will benefit from this highways, which is finishing tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Ένα σύντομο σχόλιο και από εσάς και από τον κύριο Μαργαρίτη, Σκινά, για να κλείσουμε.
And then Mr. Schinas, and then we'll have the second round of voting. I didn't want to say something now, but because a very important matter was touched upon, waste management, and I'll divide it into two parts. Now, waste management is the main issue facing Greek society, and we know it was an important problem up to now. Even now, we're paying very hefty fines because this is an outstanding issue and it's been haunting us. So what we have designed jointly with the Commissioner, we've agreed on the following: an important amount of the funds given to Greece in the second, if you like, half of the year, additional money under the NSRF. This money will be given to implement projects that will help solve this very important issue. Now, institutions, you know that in 2016, the government drafted a new national plan for the management of waste, and this includes the EU directives that actually put an emphasis on local management, sorting at source, recycling, composting, and of course 12 of the 13 regional plans have been completed. And what we see is that at a regional level we have this new national plan. But another important matter was touched upon in relation to managing industrial waste. And this is very important. It's something we're looking into very carefully. There in the coming months we will have a specific call ready under the OP for competitiveness and entrepreneurship, and we're here to provide information. So this will be a call on the environmental industry, so to speak, i.e. the possibility we give to support companies, industries, or third parties, new forms of entrepreneurship that will actually manage dangerous waste, industrial waste, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to give some additional information. Thank you. I stop here. Mr. Schinas. If this is the last time that I take the floor, I'd like to thank all of you for your patience. We've been together for 2.5 hours. Dozens of questions were asked. We don't agree on everything, and I think this is actually why this dialogue is useful as well. I don't want you to consider this as a one-off thing. Just because we talked once, it doesn't mean that it's all over. We want to hear from you. We want you to communicate with us. We have the permanent representation of the European Commission. It will soon celebrate its 40th anniversary. We also have info points all over Greece. So talk to us, write to us, call us, do whatever you can. But don't do one thing. Don't remain silent. We want you vocal. We want you to help us shape our common future. So before we conclude, here we see the next question. And before thanking our guests and our speakers, who will also comment on the matter, here you can vote again. So after the discussion we had today, do you feel that this event has improved your knowledge about the EU in some way? So again, some seconds are needed to vote. I think we have finished. No questions from this side were accepted. I understand, but not everybody can be satisfied. Off mic, I understand. We tried to hear from as many people as possible today. I wish we could have listened to everyone.
No microphone, I'm afraid.
She has no micro, so I don't.
The lady must have said that there's no peace. We have lived in peace for so many years, and now there's no peace in Europe.
Δεν σας δίνουν εδώ. Δώστε το μικρόφωνο.
May I have the microphone, please? But, well, at the same time, please keep voting. I represent an association, Ukrainians in Greece. We're more than 35,000 Ukrainians in Greece. What is your question? Okay, my question is this. Why are Roma a priority? What about other minorities? We are another minority. Priority should be given to all minorities. Then, another thing. If we are threatened by wars in our region, take Syria, for example. We are dealing with implications of the war in Syria, migrants, refugees, etc. But we're doing nothing concerning the causes of this war. So what does the EU intend to do with wars in our region?
Vulnerable people, and vulnerable people means also Roma population. It's up to the member states how they deal with their minorities, and it's not up to the European Commission. We address the population, the Greek population, but we focus, as I said, on the vulnerable people, and in our mind, vulnerable people means Roma or migrants, people that they don't have jobs. Young people also are vulnerable, elderly people are vulnerable. So we don't address minority, nationality, and we don't treat people from the point of view of their nationalities. So from my point of view, I think we are all the same. We are all human beings. We all deserve a better life. And what we are doing is for the benefit of all citizens in Greece. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 57% have voted yes. They have been helped by the debate. 39 no, 2% I don't know. Mr. Schinas, we need more such debates so that we can give the floor to more people, to those who have not had the time to take the floor. It's a shame, but we ran out of time. Thank you very much for coming here.
We're really sorry about this.